So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining in. So I think we're just gonna get into it. Um, so again, I'd like to reiterate the purpose of having these conversations, right? So the
Mm,
purpose of these conversations is basically to understand the people behind the amazing work, right? Who is this individual? And as mentioned previously in the previous interview, and I see that the guy is here. Thank you for joining in. I see the interest is not just in your own interviews. You also like to see what other marketers are doing. So, with that said, so the purpose of this platform is to say who are the individuals behind these amazing brands. Because I think, as mentioned previously, we get caught up in the titles. Who's this person? And in fact, I had an interesting conversation with another marketer where we said, even when as a marketer, when people love you, or it feels or it seems like people love you, they don't love you, or they're not necessarily interested in you. They're interested in the
in the
title.
title,
But once you
absolutely.
leave and they realize you don't have the power or the decision making or you don't have the money, in fact, that's all it is. When you don't have the money, once you move away from the title, you realize the phone calls start diminishing. You don't get messages anymore. Uh, so, which is why we believe, or as a platform, that it's important to understand the people behind the
Absolutely.
work. So, with that said, I'd like to get into the interview, and I hope people get to know more about you. So, and what I like about you, and there's one myth that I'd like to bust, particularly with you, and I think people who work in organizations such as the one that you work for, right?
Mm,
Is that usually when people are linked uh, to parastatals or brands that are linked to the government, there's always this assumption that it's just people in positions, we don't even know how you got there. But you are a true marketer. You're a marketer at heart. And I hope people listening in will be able to get a better sense of who you are and that you're actually like a true marketer and you trying to bring value to brand SA. So the
yeah.
first question that will kickstart the conversation is, who are you? I see on your name you've got on some platforms you've got Mandaba in brackets. So who is Mandaba? Where do you come from, and where did you study? And uh, yeah,
Thanks, Bogosi, and welcome to everybody who's here with us. It's a beautiful day I see in Cape Town. Joburg is a bit cloudy today. It's a bit
yeah,
cloudy. As Tembile is a very down to earth, a very normal, kind of a girl next door type of a girl from Umlazi. So I grew up in Umlazi Township in Durban. It's called Umlazi, and I did my schooling in Umlazi. So if I'm going to basically take you up from tertiary level, if that's okay with you.
that's okay.
So that's when I actually fell in love with marketing. In fact, I'm lying. I fell in love with marketing in high school, right? How do I know this? I know this because I used to recite a number one adverts, and I used to be very much intrigued about the messaging and this thing, what drives these people from, who tells these brands to tell us what they're telling us. Because I used to go into a commercial school, which was Umlaza Commercial High. And then I decided, look, let me just try my, and I was good in economics. I was good in business economics. In business studies, I was actually very good in high school. So I went to Mangosuthu, and I did my marketing a 3-year diploma there. And I did very well, to my surprise. What you don't know is that I got 7 distinctions throughout my years, the 3 years in marketing. That just goes to show the passion behind, I suppose, the marketing itself, the strategy, the consumer aspect of things. And then, that was in 1996. And then 97, the challenge then came. I was then sent or deployed in the government term to Johannesburg to look for greener pastures. And I guess that's when, for me, I think the real stretch came about because at the time I was very lucky to join a program which was called the Thumbprint Training Program. And essentially what the program was all about, it was ran by TBWA Handler Scories, where they took the best students and they exposed them to different, FMCG companies, just to give them kind of an intro into this space of marketing, and branding. And part of that also included a AAA scholarship where we were studying. Obviously, there were about 8 of us in my team, and there's quite a number of people that have also been successful that underwent this thumbprint training program. And I think for me, this really was a reinforcement that I was on the right track. I chose the right subjects, because then my journey started off by training at SABC, radioactive then, believe it or not, it was radioactive. So I'm kind of divulging my age. And then I also went to National Brands, which was called the National Brands. Now it's called the AVI, I think. And then I also went to Reckitt and Coleman then, but now it's Reckitt and Benkiza. So you see how things have changed over the years. So my groundwork was very much around classical FMCG marketing. And that's when I really fell in love with the brands, the strategy behind the brands, understanding what drives consumer, what motivates them from moving from brand A or preferring brand A to brand B. And that was my journey. And then obviously then from an academic point of view, I then also decided to kind of, upgrade myself, because I saw the competition in Johannesburg was quite tough. And also it's quite good for human, for a person to stretch themselves. I then went also to IMM to kind of boost my academic profile as well, to do the postgrad in marketing. But look, from an experience point of view, you're quite right. Let's debunk the myth that government workers are somehow laid back or probably not so informative when it comes to things like strategy. I can tell you that since that thumbprint training program, I've had the luxury of working for big organizations. I'm talking from the likes of Brand House. I'm talking from the likes of Tiger Brands, where I really did my ground work, where I worked on the jungle portfolio, so the breakfast portfolio. So understanding that consumer of the breakfast category. And from the breakfast category, having worked on Koo, which is almost slightly kind of a different consumer profile. And I really enjoyed my years in Tiger Brands. I grew as a marketer. I think I stayed there for about 4 years. And from Tiger Brands, and then I went to Unilever, which is almost similar to Tiger Brands, because what used to happen is that they used to poach each other's people. Then I went to Unilever. At Unilever, I worked on a very, very, very great brand called Norox. We all know Norox. We grew up, eating Norox with mangoes and so forth, and cooking with Norox. And then my journey then went again to Pioneer Foods. Now that's a different target audience altogether. Pioneer was strictly about grains, and it was bread category. So the Sasco, you are in Cape Town, so you must try the Sasco brand. Again, there I did phenomenal work, where it's all about repositioning of the Sasco brand, and the whole marketing, coming up with the advertising for the brand and the category itself. And from there, I move on to, where did I go? It's been a long journey. I then went to Nampek in Gauteng. So Nampek Tissues, where I've worked on the baby category. So from food to now baby diapers, as well as adult incontinence, which is Tena. So again, that taught me a whole lot of new things, because with marketing, what people often fail to understand is that they think it's one blanket approach that works for everyone, and it's not. I think the knuckle is right at understanding the consumer in terms of who you're speaking to. So after Nampek, I then went to Food Corp. Food Corp, I worked on the bread category, the Sunshine, it's the Sunbake brand. After Food Corp, I then said, gosh, I'm tired of chasing the innovation funnel, because you do chase that innovation funnel. Some people will tell you from, the product development process, from the time you go to the factory with your prototypes, you present and the products are being, approved, and then it goes to all the gates that are necessary until you launch your product. I said, I'm tired. I'd like to do something more meaningful, something with a purpose. And I prayed about it. I said, God, what can I possibly do that will give me like inner fulfillment? And I kid you not, in 2011, when I left Food Corp, I then left Food Corp to join Brand South Africa. And for me, it was a whole new beast, because we're talking country. We are talking a country that's, has almost 59 million odd people. And it's a different beast, because you are not only talking to your people, but we are talking to people from the international audience and trying to persuade them to buy into your value proposition as a country. And that has been every year, it's a different set of dynamics. So it's not boring. It keeps you on your toes. I'm not sure about aging.
Yeah.
Perhaps I might have aged a bit. But again, presidents also age, we saw Obama.
Yeah.
So it comes with the job. So that's where I'm at. That has been my journey. And I often have that challenge with advertising agency people when they present a creative concept. And I would challenge them. They'll see the person that's challenging is a person that is on the other side of the fence, that wears different hats, because strategy does require us to wear different hats depending on who you're talking to and how much you have to adapt yourself. So I definitely come across that.
Amazing. So before we double click on Brenda saying the kind of work that you do, so based on your diverse experience, are there any principles that you've learned? So I always like to connect the dots, and as you're
Yeah.
telling your story, I get the sense that you are almost doing the groundwork to prepare you for this Brand South Africa job. You speak about being in different companies, being able to speak into different or diverse audiences. From this company, it's this audience, it's this audience. So it almost feels like, in principle, you were collecting learnings and principles that would help you ultimately apply yourself in this brand essay role that you have. Are there any top line key principles that you've learned from having worked at these different companies? One of them I would say maybe that you've mentioned was about understanding your audience. Are there any other? It can be life or career specific principles.
Look, I mean, over and above what I've stated, which is quite important, because you can never sell any brand if you do not understand your consumer, because then it means you do not understand what their needs are and how to fulfill those needs. And secondly, for me, it was more about passion. You have to be passionate about the brand that you are promoting or the brand that you are building. Without passion, I can tell you, because you are actually setting yourself up for failure. So it's not about applying to get a job, but it's actually saying, hang on, can I fall in love with that Lucky Star, brand? Can I fall in love with that Albany bread? Is there a chance? Because once you're in that, it actually requires you to think outside the box. And thinking outside the box really requires you to be involved with that brand. So I really think passion, marketers have to also package themselves with passion. And I also think stakeholder inclusion is important. I think that for me is a common thread all through the years of my marketers. Why do I say stakeholder inclusion? Because it's teamwork. I learned in FMCG that there's no way you can have a product on shelf without involving, the salesperson, and get the salesperson who's going to be responsible to list this product in different, chain stores, to buy into the concept and believe that there's a real need for this product, for this brand as well. I also learned that you can't get an end product without going into the factory, getting your hands dirty. So in most of my years, I would go into those plants, and marketers hate going into those factories, but it is imperative. Not only do you build relationship and shape them, but what you do, you are saying, I am willing to go down this road with you. And it's far much easier to get buy-in from a factory manager or from a floor staff that is working there packing, whether it's a packer or it's somebody who's really, doing something in your product at the plant. It is important. and then you fast forward to brand South Africa. Stakeholder inclusion is important, because how do I sell a brand alone as Sithembile? I have to understand every South African, or try and understand every South African, try and understand stakeholders that are pertinent in carrying the flag. So who are those stakeholders? It's really looking at other people that are instrumental in the promotion of the brand. Stakeholder inclusion then becomes almost your skill, or you almost become a marketing slash a salesperson, essentially, because then if you can't have a marketer, that absolutely sucks at selling. Then it means you can never get people to buy into your vision. And I also think the third aspect that I've learned, you have to be visionary, have to dream as a marketer. Dream. From dreams, I think, then stems innovation. So I'm a sucker of innovation. I'm a sucker of creativity, and I always prefer to lump these two together, creativity and innovation, because that comes from you sharing the vision, not only about the company vision, but the brand vision itself, and being very crystal clear. So how do you connect the dots from, the overall growth of a company to where your small contribution is as a person is quite important. And often in that helps in debunking the myth, even internally, that we have battles. We have battles amongst ourselves, even with finance people. When you want budgets and they tell you, oh, no, actually, no, I don't believe in marketing. Or where is the first place to get budget cuts? It is marketing, but you won't get that if they buy into your vision and they buy into your brand's direction. So I really think, for me, those are the absolute critical aspects of marketing. And then the last one, being the common thread, is strategy. Why do I say strategy? Because strategy is your game plan. It says, where are you coming from? Why do you do what you do? So if you don't know your why, then how will somebody else understand your why? And Simon Sinek says it quite well. He says, you've got to define your why, because your why is important. So marketers ought to think about the why they do what they do. It's not about, just, diving and changing a product on shelf and say, I'm going to change packaging, because that's another myth that brand managers often, the minute they take a new brand, they just change packaging. But why change that packaging? Was there a need? Or they add another variant. Well, is there a need for that variant? Because then after a while, you then get yourself into a quagmire where you have to do an SKU rationalization, for instance. It's because of continuous launches without clear strategic plan or vision of where you're taking your brand. So for me, I really think those are key, and they remain consistent no matter what the brand or no matter what the challenge is that is being thrown at you. Once you have that foundation and that strength in mastering those things, I really think it's quite great. I think of a lesson in my life where one person, in my memory lane, which is very short, but I once had a person that taught me that, if you have passionate people, right? If you've got a passionate people and that are buying into your vision, you've got customers for life. And that stood well and still, it stands even now. I always make sure that, are these guys on the same boat with me? Are we all? And I always constantly have to do those check-ins. Are we together or not together? Because you have to put one through. So I think those are the basics. And as much as they are the basics, they are quite important though.
Well, that's amazing. I think that's great. So I think, just to double click on the passion thing, what I've found is that what the having the passion, I think it's a critical thing. It's similar to that conversation about when people say, nice guys finish last, when
Yeah.
it comes to business, where you say you have to be ruthless. And I think passion is one of those things that might be overlooked in terms of skill, especially in our world, where there's so many things happening, and then we lose focus, and then we get bogged down in the detail and processes and paperwork. You want to finish a contact report without even realizing that, hey, wait, are we even are we even doing the right thing? And I think what the passion allows you to do is ask those critical questions, and you'll be that person when everybody's trying to solve, and say, okay guys, hold up, let's step back, and I think it's critical. And then the other thing is that I think there's an opportunity and there's room for us to learn from uh, like the principle that you talked about in terms of stakeholder management, right? I
Yeah.
think it's one it's one principle that we can learn from government. So there's always this assumption that government can learn from the corporate world, and I think
Mm,
it's an interesting thing where the thing that you're speaking about also can be we can learn from your end to say the idea of stakeholder management is critical because from our point of view as a creative industry where you have multiple pockets of expertise, where I come from a creative perspective, there's PR, there's media, everybody has their own KPIs, objectives, and
mm,
then we start pulling in different directions. So I think there's an opportunity there for us to learn from your end. So now, you spoke about vision, and I've got one question on vision in terms of what is your personal vision for South Africa. That's one, and the other one is as a principal, speaking as a marketer, how do you define the South African target audience? I always say as a principal, you can't say you're targeting everyone, and I think maybe this is also a learning opportunity for us to understand your world better. One
mm,
is, what is your vision for South Africa, and is that vision possible? Just when you think about the different dynamics, the different challenges that we face as a country,
mm,
socially, where we are, where some people are here and some people are down here. How
mm.
do you the overarching question then perhaps could be, how do you speak to everyone and be able to be relevant for the different needs across the different levels? So do you have a vision? What is it? And then how do you define South Africa as a target audience? And I know you've got another mandate of speaking to the international
Yeah.
uh, target audience, but in terms of South Africa, who are we? Who are we as South Africans?
Look, sure. I'll start with the vision. My own vision is, and I suppose that's what propelled me to work, to apply, number one, for a job, and I was quite lucky to actually even get the job. Is the passionate of that I have of this country. My vision is to live in a country where the people of the country are just so in love with the country that they are willing to be the doers, not the people that say, government, what are you going to do for me? But the people that are going to say, what can I do wherever I am at in my own little corner to play a part in making South Africa the most beautiful destination that is able to attract people, tourists to come here. Because when tourists come in South Africa, what happens? The economy booms. And then when the economy booms, that's when there's spillovers and the ripple effect that goes to each and everyone, because then there's job employment, there's employment opportunities and so forth. So my vision really is to make South Africa the most attractive destination. That when people think of Africa, the first destination they think of is not a Kenya or a Ghana, but they say, I'd like to go to South Africa. Why? Because of its people. Now, why am I saying because of its people? I've always find that we are intriguing as South Africans, as just our own. We don't said, never mind government, just us as South Africans. There's a little bit of goodness. There is some kind of creativity and uniqueness in all of us that if we were able to tap into our inner strength and be able to extrapolate from there and master the art of actually using our strength to benefit somebody else as well as the country. I strongly believe that in all of us there's that goodness. We've seen it happen over the years, which then leaves me to your second question about the vision. Of who do we speak to? How do we even segment? We are I think we are a very tough we are a tough people. Firstly, we are very hard on ourselves. We are so immune into complaining, and I don't blame people, to be quite honest, because it has been all the corruption that has been happening. For instance, if you look at in the government, and some of this corruption are not even resolved, and it's been dragging for years, and then people then start to lose trust. And in fact, if you look, there's a study, it's called the Trust Barometer. If you look at the Trust Barometer, then you start to understand really the intricacies that are involved in terms of people losing, trust in government. So if people lose trust in government, guess what? People can actually turn economies around. I know a role of civil society to be that strategic, to be that crucial. And I think it just takes us to tap into our inner strength in mastering what is it that we are good in. And we know what we are good in. Our strength, we're so diverse, because in such a way that there is no one unique selling proposition where I can say, oh no, this is jungle, and jungle gives you energy. And I just talk about energy and sustainable energy. South Africa has a number of strengths. So I can't say it's only one USP. There's quite a number of them. They vary from the creative, largely they reside within the creative art space. So I'm talking about your people that are within the, the singing, the music industry, the people within the acting sphere, the people within the fashion, industry. So everyone is trying to make a mark, and everyone is really trying to support what we have been saying as Brand South Africa. When I joined Brand South Africa, I joined at a crucial time. If you recall, the country was all about South Africa alive with possibilities. You remember? Yeah. Everybody had rallied behind that slogan, that vision. And I must be specific that country brand is not, nation brand is not about slogans, but for us, alive with possibilities worked. And you know why it worked? We're coming from an era of South Africa not being known for anything. And we're coming from an era of the apartheid. And then boom, we come and we now buy into the one vision that came after Uvukuzenzele, if I remember, and also Abomsobo, and now into a vision that says, alive with possibilities, and everybody rally into it. And I've always said, but guys, we're on the right track. And then years later, we almost took a dive, like a deep dive, because not every South African understands what South Africa proposition is all about in terms of the inspiration aspect. We are all about South Africa inspires new ways. And I remember when the tagline was launched in 2012, we got a lot of critique from the marketers themselves. And they were saying, the so-called marketers, the gurus, how we classify ourselves, which is also one of our biggest problem. I hate people that hate is a strong word, I dislike people that love to classify and box people. You have to allow people to think differently, and you have to allow criticism as well, constructively, but it's how that's given. But the fact that when you ask people that, show me one country that has been able to host 3 World Cups, there's quite a few, and we are one of them. And you say, show me a country where an elderly lady has, went to UK and went to United States and painted the whole state in Ndebele. You tell me which countries. Our mom Esther, Dr. Esther, actually did that. And there's so many of us that we used to challenge ourselves and say, when Utata Madiba died, when he passed on, we were worried what will be of South Africa. What is of South Africa is the human aspect that you have, that I have, that the people listening in have, that what is it that they have, the inner strength, their talents that they can tap into. Look at us today. Today we've got big brands such as Zabula Duma, big brands, Batu. Batu is doing amazing things right now, launching, creating jobs, and it's just a local guy. And there's some genes. I mean, and then I don't know if they do ladies, but I think the guy's name is Tsepo. Is it Tsepo? Yeah, it's Tsepo. Amazing stuff. I tell you, everyone is doing something, whether it's a tea brand or it's candles, or I read about these stories and I say, so what? because you probe and you say, so when all these things are happening, what does it make you feel about your country? Eventually I get to the word, you know what, actually I'm so inspired. So
Mm,
why criticize the fact that we are all about inspiration? Is it because you were not possibly getting it at the right time, or is it because the story is being not narrated in a good way? And that's when we have to now say, how do we then speak to different audiences in South Africa and make sure that we speak to all of them? And I can tell you now, that's where stakeholder inclusion is important, because
mm,
you would understand as the years go by, budgets have been significantly cut. So, which means one has to be very strategic in terms of ensuring that they reach different audiences and they understand the messages. And only when you've got those relationships, and I think there are many studies that we follow. The Rep Track, which is the Reputation Institute, they look at, there's the concept called made in, and how the country of origin, as we classify it, plays a crucial role in enhancing the reputation of a brand. So my job is to make sure that there's a strategy for almost every pillar. So there's a strategy that I'm working on for the country of origin. There's a strategy that I continuously work on where I engage South Africans locally and through a Play Your Part program, where I'm saying to domestically, come on, let's all play our part. If you've got an innovative idea, you've got a sharp idea, come bring it to Brand South Africa. We are not a funding agency, but we are the mouths that can tell the story about you, so that you can lend yourself
mm,
somebody to support you. So we do that. We do segmentation. We do that accordingly to the messages. You said our domestic mandate obviously will say this one, we have to speak to all languages. We've got how many languages, including sign languages, 11 languages, right? And you say, okay, how do I make sure that I speak to everyone? Make sure that you use your media that is relevant. And where Play Your Part becomes important is when we've got Play Your Part ambassadors. So people like you that have bought into the vision. And let me tell you, our vision that we crafted together is that if we want to create a country brand that inspires its people, right? So their
mm,
inspiration is coming, and you see the common thread of inspiration that inspires its
mm,
is admired globally. Because if we keep on inspiring each other, let me tell you, the people are going to look at us and say, who are these people? Or where are these people coming from? And they say, no, it's from South Africa. Look at the Japanese, whom they didn't know anything about South Africa, not much, but we knew about, the cars that come from Japan. We knew about the kimonos. The ladies know that, I want a kimono, but they didn't know that who are these people, but through World Cup, through sports. So it's about mastering which are those things that are going to enable us. And we often classify them as soft power. So the ability to use persuasive measures outside of the hard talk, to actually learn about each other. And sports for me is one of those. Creative arts is one of those. So that's how we segment things essentially in our communication, in a nutshell.
Okay, fantastic. So I've got a question here, and I don't know if maybe you sent the question from Anonymous. And as the question came, you touched on the question. So I don't know if you're playing us here, but
No, I don't do that. I don't do games.
so the question from, and you touched a bit on it. You spoke about sports and the creative arts. So Anonymous is asking, other than the creative arts space, and I will add sport here, what other pillars do we use to market South Africa? Because I think the sentiment here, as they say, is that I think as a South African, it's not always clear cut what is the selling point. And I
Mm,
think maybe from a broader point of view, yes, the creative arts seems to get the spotlight or the shine, but not
mm,
everybody is going to be in the creative arts, right?
yeah.
So are there any other pillars that pull the of South Africans, and now that I'm thinking about it, the irony is that during the lockdown, we had creative people complaining about lack of support from government. We had creative
Mm,
people, bayazabalaza, to say, why is
yeah.
the government not supporting us? We hold the country down. So there's this, disparity of it sounds like you've got the power, but you don't have the power. So what
Mm,
other things, or maybe this is maybe a conversation to say, here are the other existing pillars that maybe we need to double click on,
mm.
to build equity around those things.
Look, for a longest time, in fact, it just to sort of, sports and creative arts has always been there, if you understand me, because even pre our democracy, we use
Mm.
music to get our democracy. So that has always been a given. Now, if you
True.
ask me the associations of South Africa, now we're looking at brand associations when we unpack the brand construct. We've always been associated with agriculture, by the way, and mining for the longest time. And then to a point where, while we understand that manufacturing is going down, we started saying to ourselves, let's actually tap into innovation, let's tap into science and technology to change or to shift the paradigm so that we are not confined into just around, into being in the mining and agriculture. And I think we have done that very well. If you follow the WEFGCI, that's the World Economic Forum, the competitiveness index, we continue to do well from these pillars of innovation, science and technology. We are not where we're supposed to be, and I can tell you why we're not supposed to be. We are not there yet, because there are a number of South Africans that are innovative, but you see, they are doing things because they are only looking, they're wearing blankets. I'm doing it for myself. They have not started looking beyond the person, that if I am good at this, can I imagine how this thing can do to my country from a reputation point of view? So the other pillars that we have been profiling the country has been around the inroads that we've made in the medicinal factor. I mean, in the medicinal fraternity, we've, from the 3D scans that we did, the machine, and we've had last year, the doctor, in fact, late last year, early this year, the doctor that did the first 3D ear surgery. So for me, those are the kind of stories that we keep on saying as Brand South Africa, bring them on, because that's how we want to profile the country. The investment AV, which is what we put together last year, said that very clear, that the tone is really about investing in South Africa, in the 4IR South Africa, because we know that the COVID-19 has even pushed us further into the space of technology, and there is no turning back, because I can tell you that there is no turning back. The brands that will last are the brands that are going to be able to showcase how good they are from a technological perspective and innovation point of view. And we've got various partners. I mean, the innovation hub, that company in Pretoria, they always give us access to ordinary South Africans that have done amazing stuff, from a product development in terms of providing solutions that are based on real needs. And it's also about the things that we have also done it's not only the medicinal, but also just from a manufacturing of things in South Africa, how we make things easy. But we are trying to get things right, for instance, from a food point of view. If you look at the Woza is wines of South Africa. People, lo and behold, they don't know that we are in the top worldwide with our wines. So what we don't know, and therefore we don't know how to use it. But from a product, from an entrepreneurial point of view as well, we've got a number of brands that are also kind of hinted of people that have made inroads through products that are made in South Africa. But these people are going as themselves. So which means it poses a challenge on Brand South Africa to say, Brand South Africa, why can't you come up with a strategy that that enables and fast track co-creation amongst these people? Because then that's the only way that we can profile in many countries and in many ways how we inspire you in different ways. I'll tell you now that you're coming from South Korea. South Korea used to battle as a country. Now, if you look at South Korea, they've done tremendously well. In fact, in the future brand ranking, they are in the top 10 from an innovation point of view, and a country that is almost seen as forward-looking. You look at countries like the Hong Kongs, it's the perception that is there, that is being created through the technology. If you look at who's driving this technology, it's actually the people. You drill down and you say, oh, okay, I didn't know this. Brand Chile, Brand Chile was able to move from a negative trajectory into a growth trajectory. You know why? Because they used the made in Chile. They bought that concept. So how about we collectively say, how do we expand on our pillars by using and adopting the made in South Africa? But you have got to go onto that path by believing first in the vision, and the vision that I've articulated earlier before actually deciding that I want to be part of this journey, because I believe that's where the strength is. To really
Okay.
answer you, we have been diversifying. We have been speaking about the innovation in the car sector, in the manufacturing sector, but talking specifically about car. So manufacturing is manufacturing until you actually modify it. And we've been talking about, the innovation, about coming up with solutions that are serving good, the good for the world. So why do I say that? Because again, there is an index that we call the Good Country Index by Simon Anholt. And that Good Country Index look at multifaceted aspects of countries and the role they play in the issues of community. So where we actually are doing extremely well is our peace, in our peace and security. We are rated number 1 out of 150. I think 150 odd countries. That tells you that we are doing something right with our peace, our role of peace in the continent that we play, but also from a welfare point of view, we are also doing very well because we are in the top 30. And then if you start to look at entities such as, Nurses Beyond Borders, Doctors Beyond Borders, you look at Gift of the Givers. Funny enough, all those people are contributing towards building the nation brand that is quite strong.
That's amazing. Thank you. So I've got two questions, and I see we've got 7 minutes with you because you have to leave at 5:02. I'd like you just to spend a minute on this one, and then there's I think there's a more pressing one that I'd like you to spend maybe 5 minutes on before we close.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is, what role does Brand SA play, if any, in the overall marketing of our continent? And this is from Annette Grootboom.
Okay. We play a crucial role. Why do I say that? Number one, our president is the chair of the AU. But not only that, but South Africa and the continent, you see, my view, particularly from a marketing point of view, is that we can never say South Africa is a country on its own. It's a country that is demarcated. It's a demographic, kind of location that's been given to South Africa, but it's in Africa. So we can't say the continent is growing. South Africa is growing without the continent. Whenever we market, all my marketing of this country has always been grow with South Africa and grow with the continent, purely because from a messaging point of view, we are saying, even if you come to South Africa, you get access to then go into other countries in the continent, because we each have our own uniqueness. But what we have not mastered is to build this brand called Brand Africa. And we are working on that with your gurus of, your likes of Tebe, to try and make sure that we are continue to building this brand that we called Africa, whether we celebrate it through the brands themselves or us going into the continent and collaborating. And we've got quite a number of civil society partners from the continent where we are positioning South Africa together with the continent to make sure that we attract. Because I kid you not, if you take the size of the continent and you look at the Asian and you look at the European, we are the biggest. So we need to be more in tune with each other and collaborate more. So the opportunities, they are there, and there's more of them. We are not tapping into them quite as yet, or fully utilizing them or exhausting them, but definitely we are promoting the continent as and when we promote South Africa.
Okay, amazing. So I've got two questions, but the first one, I'll just put it out there as a statement, and then I'd like you to answer the second one. The
Okay.
first question, which I'll leave as a statement, is from Lebogang, who says, the stories of success that you mentioned are encouraging and inspiring, but what she feels there's a bit of a gap in terms of telling those stories, right? And what she's saying is that the ones that you alluded to almost come from the brands themselves. So it's almost like there is some sort of initiative to tell stories around Maxhosa or Tsepo the Gene Maker or Batu, almost to say that those stories are already well known. And I'm putting it as a statement, and it is a
Yeah.
question. The question is, where does brand SA, what's the role of brand SA in telling other stories that might be even more interesting, but they're sort of like in the background? I'll leave you to think about that one. The one that I
Okay.
want you to answer, from Lebogang as well. See, we've got about 4 minutes. Is in this conversation about different pillars, and I think you made an interesting point when you spoke about the arts being always have been part of our South African narrative because it was an outlet even during apartheid. Music artists became big. Some were abolished or banned because of the lyrics. So it always been there. And you've mentioned other pillars. But then, according to Lebogang, there's this pillar which is actually the elephant in the room, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is racism in South Africa. So and maybe this might be an unfair question for you, but I think maybe it's something that you should, if you don't, deal with, right? So what she says is it's great in how we communicate the pillars, but
Mm,
how, however, I can't help but think about the one point that brings us apart. So you talk about these diversity or diverse things that make us unique, but there's this thing, racism, that pulls us apart. And the question is, what is Brenda say doing domestically to educate, or should we say, particularly white people? Because I think majority of the conversation happens amongst black people. We
mm,
talk about racism from an experience point of view, but what is your role in talking to the people who the people that sort of like exert this racism onto uh, other people, black people? What is your role there, and are you doing anything to deal with that? Because I think the question for me speaks to the idea that we can talk about all these amazing things, what we're doing, but deep down, under the rug, there's this dirt of racism that we know
mm,
exists. Every time we try to walk to the door, we get tripped by this
mm.
dirt under the rug. Is there anything that you're doing? Are you doing anything?
Certainly we are doing something, but I think what we need to first acknowledge is that racism is as a result of this huge inequality gap that we have in South Africa. Now we have a gap that even the powers that be have been failing to bridge over the years. And this gap, what it does, it then when people are frustrated, it then provokes these emotions of racism. But what we also find out is that people in South Africa do not understand fully the Constitution of South Africa. So, which then leads me to my response. Part of our mandate is to popularize the Constitution, the South African Constitution. That was never ever our mandate. But as time goes on, we actually discovered that racism, hang on, is actually one of the biggest disabler of a brand, just like xenophobia is the biggest disabler. What role can we do as people that are entrusted with the vision of promoting South Africa and managing the reputation? We then started including the promotional of the Constitution, and we do that. And currently, we are busy with a campaign with one of our agency where we are actually going to have multi-pronged communications. One that's going to speak to you as a white person who's being a racist, and the other one that's going to speak to you as a black person who is also a racist, because there's a nice mindset tap into it. Because we found out based on our research is that actually in South Africa you find there are little pockets of those, but largely they're driven by the other people of color. So we have to speak to them. So the constitutional awareness campaign allows us to do that. And then the other question where you referred to the other stories, you look, if you go to brandsouthafrica.com, you will see that we've got a program that we call Play Your Part. And Play Your Part was a program, it's a program that I'm really passionate about because it profiles ordinary South Africans that are doing extraordinary work. precisely for that point, that what we find, funny enough, is that we work with these people that are small. When I say they're small, we find them small, because, and then we grow with them, and then voila, we let go of them. And by the time you guys know them and you take it for granted, and you say, now we are working with already established brands. And I'm saying, hang on, but I've got quite a handful of people that were not so known, but through Play Your Part program, where I'm sure you've seen in the past, we've used Ukabelo Mabalane to profile these stories, where we go into different communities, and then we find Mang Mang, who's great in doing this, and they're playing their part, and then we profile you. And not only does it end there, we take you to the international space, your CNNs of this world, your Sky News, where we do short kind of films where we profile people. But what we find is that often people, they don't like to participate. We say, guys, come on, show us, send us your stories, and just give us, there used to be a song, Take a Chance on Me, and I like, to always tell my stories using song. That song, Take a Chance on Me, take a chance on Brand South Africa. Bring your idea. Let us be the one to tell the world who you are and what you do. So we do have a Play Your Part program for those type of ordinary stories, and we profile the ordinary, and the ordinaries, believe you me, before we know it, they become your celebrities. And that was never the intention. The intention was to promote the do good, the kind of let's do good for the culture, so that let it be the South African way of doing things. Like I always say, playing our part is the South African way of doing things. And we've worked with you in the past, where we've said to you guys, and we're on the other side of the fence giving me service, and I'd say, it has to be part of our ethos. It has to be part of our identity. When we say, who are these South Africans? South Africans, they are the people that punch above their weights. They're people that are hardworking. They are friendly people. They are nice people. They are innovative, creative. Those are the things that we want to continue to hear from, to hear about when we look and we monitor these research indices. It's quite brilliant. But I think, because your platform, for me, what I appreciate is that it has given me almost a mouthpiece to other audiences that didn't know that we exist. Let me tell you, I didn't know about Brand South Africa until I applied for a job at Brand South Africa. I go to my Kasilami Mlazi, and then I say, but Brand South Africa, then say, you mean Proudly SA? It simply says people are still not clear in terms of our mandate, in terms of what is that we do. Those that are clear are largely based in Gauteng, purely because of our demographic, profile of our office. But the truth of the matter is, our job is to be the mouthpieces of South Africa. So all South Africans, they have to send us these stories. I personally, as long as I work for Brand South Africa, I'm able to play my part in ensuring that that story is profiled, whether on that Sunday newspaper, on that TV, on that radio, it doesn't matter. I will make sure that it's out there, particularly if it's a story worth telling.
Amazing. That's incredible. So thank you so much. So for me, my key takeout is that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. So from a heart and mind point of view, in terms of communication and letting us know about things that happen, but also there's a hard labor aspect, that like the work that needs to be done, is
Yeah.
amazing. So the last two comments, I will leave you with these two comments. Basically, people are saying, Leboghan specifically saying, they need more time with you. So I'm going to put you on the spot to say, we'd like to have you and double click on a couple of things, because they feel that this has been insightful. And I think also the key takeout is that there needs to be more work done on the Play Your Part platform, to make it
Okay.
a platform, whether it becomes bigger than Brand SA. I think we can argue that, but I think there needs to be more awareness around Play Your Part, because they're saying they didn't even know that you can do stories that sort of like not expected, but of people doing amazing work on the fringes of South Africa. So with that said, I will respect your time. We 1 minute over, or 6 minutes over your
No,
your
no problem. No problem at all. I mean, if I may, if you allow me, they can certainly send their stories to Brand South Africa. In fact, they are welcome to send to Sithembile N@brandsouthafrica.com. That's Sithembile N for Nelly @brandsouthafrica.com. You just drop it and you tell me what is it that you do, your profile and so forth. And not only that, as I said, I alluded earlier, it can't be the work that is of Sithembile and Happy as at Brand South Africa to promote this country. We rely on people like yourselves to provide us these platforms. So that's what Play Your Part is becoming a strategic and an important program for us because of the Play Your Part ambassador leg to a program where we've got ambassadors in different provinces, where we actually have where sometimes there's an opportunity for an interview or for you to represent Brand South Africa. We tap into these ambassadors because they are buying the same vision that we are promoting. So there's that opportunity as well. And I'm really, I suppose it's a call to action for people to come on board. Come on board, let us, promote and let us market this country in a rightful way. Let's not leave that to the ruling party. Let's not leave it to another person, but let it be our responsibility to everyone that is listening here and thinking, actually, I think I've got a role to play and this is my role. Come on board and let's see what can we do, because only then, and I can tell you if I just were to unpack slightly two biggest and critical drivers going forward for any other country post-COVID, is going to be innovation, it's going to be its people. Particularly if you just know that why people? Because they drive entrepreneurship. So they drive the ideas. And what happens now is that we're seeing more and more countries trying to leverage from their own people and their skills and their talent. So that for us, Zurich is Zurich. But if you've never been to Zurich, but you know about the brand, but Italy is the same thing. You know about the brand, you've never been there. We also have the same ability. We just need to be part and parcel of this journey. And I'm inviting everyone to come on board.
Amazing. With that said, I'd like to close and I'd like to put it on record that Thinkerneur is there to be a strategic partner for Play Your Part and expand the platform.
That's
So
awesome.
thank you very much for your time. Thank you
Thank you.
very much for your time. And I'd like to thank Lebogang also would like to be a strategic partner. So maybe we'll set up a meeting.
Awesome.
Thank you very much to the guys who attended. Really appreciate your support and tuning in. Hopefully you've learned some valuable insights about your country. And I think for me, the biggest key takeout is that everybody needs to be involved. We all need to play our part. With that said, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll set up a second session and double click on a
Yeah,
few.
let's do that. And possibly it must be a 2-hour session. Let's see.
Fantastic. All
Awesome.
right.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Have a lovely afternoon.